In the day's other news, Republicans in the U.S. Senate blocked consideration of a voting rights bill for the fourth time this year. Democrats needed 60 votes to begin debates, but they fell well short. They say the bill is needed to combat new restrictions on voting in at least 19 states. Republicans charge that it would usurp state authority over elections. Young children across the U.S. began getting vaccinated against COVID-19 today. Inoculations began after the CDC approved low doses of Pfizer's vaccine for children 5 to 11 years old. Meanwhile, White House officials warned against vaccine misinformation.
Every parent has a right to the facts, so they can make decisions for their children based on accurate scientific information. Misinformation robs them of this freedom. That's why I'm asking parents to please seek answers from credible sources.
Officials also say that a federal rule mandating vaccinations at large private companies will be issued in the next few days. The U.S. military warned today that China's nuclear force is growing much more rapidly than expected. A Pentagon report said that Beijing could have 1,000 nuclear warheads by 2030. The U.S. has some 3,750. General Mark Milley, the chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, said that he does not expect China to use its growing power against Taiwan, at least within the next 2 years. Another Pentagon review has concluded that no one should be punished for a U.S. drone strike that mistakenly killed 10 Afghan civilians. It happened amid the chaotic U.S. pullout in August, days after an Islamic State bomber killed 13 U.S. troops and 169 Afghans. The review cites communications and targeting failures, but no misconduct or negligence. The UN Human Rights Office is blaming Ethiopia's government and Tigrayan rebels for extreme brutality in their civil war. Thousands have been killed and wounded in Tigray province since fighting began a year ago, and witnesses have told of famine and mass expulsions. The government joined in the probe and barred investigators from some of the worst affected areas. Back in this country, the Federal Reserve will begin easing its pandemic-era economic stimulus. Today's announcement came as prices for food, fuel, and other goods keep rising. Fed Chair Jerome Powell acknowledged today that it is likely the problem will last well into next year.
As the pandemic subsides, supply chain bottlenecks will abate and job growth will move back up. And as that happens, inflation will decline from today's elevated levels. Of course, the timing of that is highly uncertain, but certainly we should see inflation moving down by the second or third quarter.
The central bank has been buying Treasury and mortgage bonds to stimulate economic activity. It now plans to phase out those purchases by next summer. Wall Street took the Fed's news in stride, and major indexes managed modest gains and more record closes. The Dow Jones Industrial Average was up 105 points to finish at 36,157. The Nasdaq rose 162 points. The S&P 500 added almost 30. And for the first time since 1995, baseball's Atlanta Braves are celebrating a World Series championship. They finished off the Houston Astros last night in Game 6. The Braves erupted after the last out on Houston's home field. It marked Atlanta's 4th World Series title overall. Congratulations. Still to come on the NewsHour, a look at the healthcare workers who are making home visits in a push to improve vaccination rates. Dr. Sanjay Gupta discusses the lessons of the pandemic and how to prevent the next one. A new exhibit honors the legacy of artist and educator David Driscoll, plus much more.
This is the PBS NewsHour from WETA Studios in Washington and in the West from the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism at Arizona State University.